Is this Bryan Knight?
Yes, this is he. How are you?
I am good. How are you? Thank you for doing the show. Sex with Stevie here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, somebody tweeted you out to me and showed that you have this comic book series, Velvet. What is it called? It's called Velvet
Collar. So the series is called Velvet Collar. It is a limited 9-issue series we have planned with a collection of short stories. So, yeah, we're currently getting ready to release issue 3 now. It's been a long journey so far. We had to learn a lot of things from scratch, and now we're dealing with COVID.
Yes, and I want to get into the details of, I read, thank you for sending me the first 2. Wow, first of all, it's so well done from your writing, from the storytelling, which I really want to get into talking about, and then of course your amazing illustrator. It's so well done. Congratulations on that, and I know so many people are going to really want to see this. But I guess my first question to you is, did you grow up looking at comics? Was that something that you were into as a kid?
The first comic I ever remember reading was a Disney comic from the series DuckTales, where Scrooge and his nephews were shrunken down to micro-size, and they got lost inside of a cart of apples and broccoli. And that was the earliest comic I could remember.
That's wild. Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't know that one. And in preparing for this one, did you see many... I know I've heard through the grapevine throughout the years that they've tried to make certain characters in a lot of Marvel comics or different comics that we all know and have heard of or love, that there might be some gay characters in there. Has there ever been like a gay comic book series that you know of? Or maybe I just don't know. Maybe there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I mean, I'll just name some off the top of my head. Ken's Bed and Breakfast. They're also based out of New York. There's also, let's see, The Defenders, which is a gay superhero comic aimed at teenagers. That made a big splash.
Okay.
Let's see, AJ and Magnus, that's the one. So think Calvin and Hobbes as if they were raised by 2 gay dads. So
I love it.
That one is very family, child-friendly, PC. It's very popular. And there's tons and tons more. There's a lot out there. All these gay and queer creators struggling to survive. It's very encouraging to see them trying to create in this medium. So I feel like I'm in good company.
Yeah, I have to say, when I was reading it, I didn't grow up reading a lot of comics, but I thought for a minute there that you could just kind of speed through comics. You know what? You really can't, because so much of it is, if it's really good artwork like you and your partners have in there, plus good writing and hot, I might add, writing and hot illustration, I found myself just getting lost in the storyline, what was going on. And with yours, issue number 1 is called Unhappy Endings. And you were telling me the other day, as we were talking on the phone, that some of this was based on reality that happened with rentboy.com, correct? Can you tell us, the audience, a little bit about how your comic is based on reality?
All right, I was working on other comics at the time, and at the time, rentboy.com was the largest online platform in the world, allowing male sex workers to meet clients. They had been around for 18 years. Then, August 25th, 2015, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and the NYPD stormed the offices, raided the place, shut everything down, arrested the CEO and 6 of the primary support staff, put them all in jail, and there was a lot of back and forth for a long time, and ultimately everyone else was released without charge, and the CEO pled to one count of conspiracy and served something like 3 to 6 months. But so I knew that I had another project going on. I shelved that one because I knew this was going to be the beginning of the change in the sex worker business that had been pretty much in a golden age for the past 10 years. And that was starting to come to an end. So I thought I have to try to collect as many of the stories and perspectives about the sex workers in this place and time so they're not forgotten, because our stories are handed down through rumor, through myth, from one professional to another, or lost altogether. And the autobiographies and memoirs of other sex workers, there's a lot that's been done, and they've trotted a lot of road, but I have never seen it done in comic book format with this much concentration. This is the first comic to really showcase male sex workers in a huge variety of experiences and backgrounds.
Definitely, to your point on backgrounds, and I really appreciated that. Each of your, is it 5 different ones that you portray, have equally different backgrounds that are really fun to read about. And I couldn't help but thinking, as you drew from a real life happening that occurred with Rent Boy actually going down, how much of it did you stay true to what really went on with what you knew, and how much did you kind of deviate to fictionalized writing?
So there have been lots of stories about sex worker experiences, but people pick up comics to have fun. So that's the primary, they pick them up to have fun because they're interesting. So I had to keep that priority in mind, creating an entertaining narrative, while at the same time all the characters are based on real people. You can actually talk to every one of the characters in the series in real life who either play themselves or play other characters in the series. So I had to really think about their own unique voices and their own unique experiences that they either wanted to represent or things that they wanted to talk about. So like Abel Ray, he's been in the business for a few years, and that breakup scene right at the beginning, that's happened to him, unfortunately, more than once. So the big breakup scene at the beginning of issue 1, that was real.
But I have to ask you on the actual aspect of Rent Boy, which I remember when all of that went down, and I remember reading tons of stories about kind of the slant of a lot of the articles that were out there were really lascivious towards the CEO of Rent Boy, and then always in jail, and it's all gone down, and you know, a lot of speculation on charges. And I know this a lot because we talked about it here on this show a couple times based on stories that we had read, and he had DM'd me a couple times and says, you know, you really don't know the full story, and I do want to get him on Tag's podcast at some time to tell
Oh my God, I so you know what? In order to finish writing the series, I really want to sit down and talk to him, but there never seemed to be a good time. I made dinner for him once and his friends, hung out at his place, but there's never really a good time to sit down and ask, so you ran a site for hookers and you got thrown in jail for 6 months. What was that about? What was going on behind the scenes? There's no good time to ask the question.
And yet you're doing it in at least in issue 1 and 2. You're very fair. In fact, I would argue you're very fair in like what you talked about, showing the various different escorts, if you will, and giving a face to them, and really showing how the FBI or the people that investigate people like for sex workers, it's like are they really spending all taxpayers' dollars? I think you alluded to at one point for what? For people that are really just making a living for the oldest profession in the world of, if you know, call it prostitution, that people want. And I think you're very fair. I don't know why somebody like that wouldn't sit down, because I think in the way you're telling it, in your very artistic way, this would be one of the best ways he would shine.
Yeah, it's and so we have great art, we have good writing, and we have real people who are actively invested in the creation process. So we have a solid trifecta to finish this series well. And like I said, and all you see it especially in issue 2. In issue 2, it takes place 2 years later after the events in issue 1, and our characters come back together. And I had to rewrite that issue maybe 4 times, just following some basic storytelling principles that I learned from Archie Comics. It was the simple thing was tell people what they want and tell people why they do things. Like, you don't have to reveal everything, but at least a plausible reason for them to act.
Right.
So, and it was and all those reasons, those basic writing came from real stories. Like in issue 1, you see that Misha, the bear, who's based in Washington, D.C. right now, he has unfortunately been targeted with death threats and stalking and hate mail. So that scene where he's being stalked by someone threatening to kill him in the subway, that happened to him and happened to me. So I kept digging back for more truth in these characters' lives from the experiences of real sex workers in order to inform their actions and inform their worldview.
Well, I know you're never going to run out of stories, even when I know you say this is a limited series, and it doesn't take anybody to turn on a blog or the news to see somebody in political hemispheres or using sex workers for their own gain. And I think you're onto something. How has this been received? Because in quarantine, as we're not going out to bars, as we're not going to clubs for months and months, I couldn't think of a better time for your kind of work, artwork, and medium to really flourish. I mean, have you found that? And I know you have a call to action too. You need more signups to get the next issues. And after reading 1 and 2, I want them to come out.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, so I've been taking a lot of time reaching out to people on social media and through my networks, in addition to just maintaining human connections and sanity through the isolation of COVID. A lot of people have lost their jobs and their income insecure. So it used to be we'd have a certain number of people donating a lot, and now we anticipate we need a lot of people to donate a little each, so to get us over the finish line. And I definitely think we can do it. And it's just very, very labor intensive.
Before we go right now, what is the place that people can go to? I know you can go to velvetcomics.com, correct?
It's a velvetcollarcomics.com. You can go there, you can purchase PDFs, or you can purchase paperbacks, and you can contact me on Twitter at Bryan Knight 66 or on Instagram under the same name.
Yeah, and right now, as we're speaking right now, you're on Facebook Live, and I have your tag, and I grabbed a picture of you from your Instagram with a dog. I'm not sure if that's your dog or not, but...
that was actually Scooby. That was my boyfriend's dog. Unfortunately, Scooby died at the beginning of the year of cancer, so that was in the last few weeks. We just gave him lots of love and hugs to help him get through it.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, I mean, and what a time to, yeah, exactly. So, but we list that. I will continue to list all this on tagspodcast.com. One of the things before I let you go that we were talking about the other day is instead of doing an OnlyFans like so many people are doing, you were telling me that people can contact you and you'll almost curate together on a commission basis with somebody that wants to see you in a certain scene, and then you'll go and create that video, that erotic video for them. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's so entrepreneurial and so outside of the box then. And I'm not, no offense to people that are doing OnlyFans, because I think, hey, it's great, but I kind of like this idea of on demand for each individual person. It's kind of a new way.
Yeah, I mean, OnlyFans and Just for Fans are taking over, and I don't have the sexual energy to go at it like 4 or 5 times a day, and it's exhausting. Like to go and get people, film scenes, fill out paperwork, edit music, light, all that. That is a lot of time and energy, and bless the men who dedicate themselves to it, because they tend to make a lot of money. I don't have that level of focus yet, and sometimes my dick just doesn't feel like working on a Tuesday. So,
you're speaking to the choir. I know what you're talking about.
So I just let people know that I am making these videos, and they're usually small solo clips. I'm now in talks with other performers who feel safe to start filming again, and we're talking about some either things that we typically don't see online because we want to have a novelty for it, or we just want to create it in our own way. Or there's lots of people out there who want videos of very specific things who are interested in paying a premium, and someone might pay me $200 for like a 10-minute solo showing my feet. But if I wouldn't know.
Which, by the way, are what size?
My feet are 15 quadruple E. They're big flippers.
There you go. I'm sure. Yep.
So it's just easier to let people know, like, hey, I made this, and a lot of them are like, well, all right, I trust you. You have a good reputation. Let's see it. So they will see it, and eventually all these solo videos, for example, that are being commissioned, people get control of them for up to a year and a half to themselves, and then I can distribute, and then I now have fresh content to ultimately put up on a site when I finally get around to it.
Oh, I like that idea. So they get it for themselves for that period. You have your contract that you create, and then after that time frame, then they can disseminate it. That's really, really well thought out, and I'm not surprised because of your work on this comic book series, Velvet Collar Comics. We should shout out to the amazing illustrator. Can you just mention his name real quick?
Yeah, so the first issue was done by Dave Davenport out in Los Angeles. He's also run Marginalized Tattoos. I think it's still around. And he did a lot of issue 2, but he had to leave because of personal issues. So Byron Power out of the United Kingdom took over. You can find them both on Instagram. Byron Power is also, he did all of issue 3, and he'll be doing all of issue 4. I'm very proud of him, very happy with his style. And we definitely welcome other artists to come pick our brains, because if for any reason that Byron can't do it, I love him, maybe, I don't know, life happens, but we definitely welcome artists interested in seeing the project all the way through.
Well, Bryan Knight, I want to thank you so much. I'm already excited, and I have not been a comics person ever, but there's an interesting slant that you have in your writing style that is reflective on what's going on, our community, and is really alluring. And I was just reading some comments here. Frank out in LA also says, never been Mr. Comics, but this sounds very cool. So I will do my part and list velvetcollarcomics.com for people to check it out. I know they're $10 an issue, and then they can also find out information on how to, if they want to donate, so that we can get more issues, because I know people really will want this material. So thank you so much, Bryan Knight.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We will be in contact. Thank you so much.